Rox, is there a slide? I know you make slides for the title of the message, right? Do we have one? Ah. So, Roxanne, how many years did you do graphics at the paper? What was the name of the paper in town? The Telegraph. How long? 25 years. Yeah, we're blessed. I don't know if you've noticed, but I have friends who are, one of my buddies is is on the executive committee, which I don't say that, I'm just saying he's responsible for like 50,000 churches in America, Southern Baptist churches. And, when we made friends years ago and he saw your work, he was like, wow, I wish I could have her. And I said, you really can't afford her. She cost me an arm and a leg. But no, I didn't even notice. I looked at it this morning and I showed it to Bernadette and I go, why is Israel purple? She's like, it's a jewel. I was like, oh. Because I don't have a computer. I just saw it on my phone. But yeah, we needed somebody really bad, and the Telegraph just let her go for some improprieties. I don't want to talk about it, but their loss was a crazy game. And I want you to know also that I don't tell her really a lot of times the message. Sometimes she'll figure out a title because she goes, what's the title? And I say, I don't title my messages. I just get them from God. I don't, no offense. I know a lot of you know pastors that they get a title and then they develop a message. I get a message and then I figure out the title. I kind of think that's a better way to do it anyway. Just saying. And speaking about messages, last month and also up to last week, the messages were kind of picked out for me, because if you think about it, on when we process the Torah on the first Shabbat of the month, there's a Parsha, right? So I'm supposed to speak on the Parsha. And then we had Yom Teruah, and we've had Yom Kippur, and we've had Sukkot, and we have Shemini Etret, and we even had cultural Christianity. So everything, I still had to seek the Lord for a message, but the bottom line is the messages were kind of picked for me. So this was the first week that I got to really seek the Lord, for a word from the Lord. And I'm telling you, hand to God, I sat down and said, Lord, where are we going? And instantaneously I heard the word peculiar. Instantaneously. And so also, just as instantaneous I heard that, I thought of Beth Yeshua. And then I thought of some of you, and you know who you are. You, not you, definitely you. And some of you watching, you, and you. No, that's not what happened. I'm just kidding. I didn't think about Beth Yeshua at all. I actually thought about where that word is used in the King James Version. I've studied other versions. I want to know, who are the scholars behind the King James? Why did they write it? But yeah, I want to know who are the scholars behind the English Standard Version, don't you? I mean, why would you read a version unless you knew who put it together and why? When I first met the Lord, I don't know why I was, I had TV and I was watching these guys on TV, and they said the King James Version is the only legitimate version of the Bible. You guys are in the South. Did you ever hear that? How many? They are totally wrong about that, by the way. I mean, even to the point where it says in the King James Version, and Jesus resurrected on Easter? That's what it says. I mean, man, so you were told that, right? And you bought it. You did, without studying. So it wasn't your pastor's fault or grandma's fault, right? Anyway, so of course, when I heard the word peculiar, this is like the origin and an anatomy of a message. You seek the Lord. Sometimes he gives you a word. And then you say, where do I go from that? Well, the minute I heard the word, I thought about the King James Version. And so let's take a look where we see this word peculiar. In Exodus 19:5, that's KJV, is the King James Version. It says, now therefore, if ye. Lily, remember when you were little, I used to call you ye? You didn't know you were the King James Version back then, right? If ye will obey my voice, indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye. Did anybody realize that Jesus was Jewish and he spoke Hebrew? Not the Queen's English? Yeshua, Yeshua, wherefore art thou? Anyway, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for the earth is mine. Okay? Let's look up this word, peculiar treasure. And it's segula. You should know this word all too well. And it means possession, property, or peculiar treasure. I knew there was one place in the New Testament that basically reiterates Exodus 19, 5 and 6, and that's 1 Peter 2, 9. Again, it says, but ye are a chosen generation, King James Version again, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should I could never read this version. Shew forth the praises of him who hath called you. Billy, were you raised with this version? My condolences. Called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So we look up the word peculiar again, because this is just how I'm getting it. I'm telling you, this is how I get it. I don't know why, but this is how it happens. And that's kind of neat when it happens like that, because then it's not my message. So the word, obviously, why are we looking it up in the Greek? Because the New Testament was written in Greek, right? And if you want to look up the words, you must, if you're going to understand God's word, you must get yourself a concordance. It's invaluable. It's impossible without it. One's own property. So I wanted to compare because I knew that this word peculiar was only really in the King James Version. So I looked in the NASV. The NASV is what I use to look up words. If you're going to use Strong's Concordance, you need a version where you can look those words up. So there's only two versions you can do that in, the King James or the New American Standard Version. So, and by the way, the New American Standard Version is an exceptional version with excellent Hebrew and Greek scholarship, just for the record. So I look up 19:5 in the NASV, and this is what I find. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, same verse, then you shall be my own possession among all peoples, for the earth is mine. Look up the word possession, same word. So we're on the same page. Segula, possession. They just chose to use different definitions for it, that's all. They chose possession. The King James chose peculiar treasure. Same word. I also go to 1 Peter 2:9, and I look at it, it says, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, possession in the New American Standard. So let's look up that word. Same one. So far, I'm finding that the King James, when it comes to this word peculiar, and the NASV are in agreement, okay? What's the only other version I need to consult? The version I read, the complete Jewish. So let's see what that says in Exodus 19:5. Now, if you will pay careful attention to what I say and keep my covenant, then you will be my own treasure from among all the people. Make sure it agrees. Look up the word. What do you know? It's an agreement. And 1 Peter 2:9, it says, for God to possess a people. Let's look up the word. Same word. So, my finding is that in all three versions, the King James and the NASV and the CJB, it's the same word. Now, what do I need to do with this word peculiar? I need to get some context. I got to get I can't make stuff up. I mean, it's very popular these days, but I'm going to get context, right? So I go to Exodus 19:5 in the version I use, and it says, now, if you will pay careful attention to what I say and keep my covenant, this is God speaking, then you will be my own treasure from among all the peoples, for the earth is mine. So God is speaking to the children of Israel, and the children of Israel have been delivered from Egypt, and they arrive where? Where are they right now? Sinai. And why is Sinai so important? How much of the Torah was written at Sinai? The rest of the book of Exodus, the whole book of Leviticus. Can you imagine? And the first 9 chapters, they set out at chapter 10 in Numbers. So a lot went on there. I mean, a tremendous went on at Sinai, right? So needless to say, it's very biblically significant. But I wouldn't focus on its location. You know these guys on the internet? I don't look at them. I'm not interested. They know exactly where Sinai is. Who cares? Are you going to go there and turn it into a shrine like Elvis's house in Memphis? It's not so much about the location. You need to focus on what took place there. That's important. That's key. Now, some say, just to let you know, some say that in Exodus chapter 19, God was giving the children of Israel his law. Because you see, from Adam until now, at this point, there has no direct law from God given to the children of Israel. None. The whole book of Genesis, no law. And up to this point in Exodus, no law. So, others say that a covenant was being cut. Why do they call it cutting a covenant? In ancient Middle East and in Mesopotamia, way back before, they would put animals. And you would walk through those animals, cut animals. And you would walk through, and what do you think we were saying to one another when we were making this covenant? If we don't fulfill our promises, this will be our comeuppance. It was very heavy. Covenants, you didn't need attorneys. You didn't need prenuptials. You didn't need this nonsense. When you shook hands with somebody, either your word or you died for not keeping your word. So you didn't go into a covenant too readily. Today, we go into covenants all the time. And then we hire attorneys to break them. Right? I mean, how are we doing in the marriage field? It's a covenant. Holy matrimony. Can you imagine? So God is really big on covenants. Cutting from the animals, cutting a covenant. He was cutting a covenant. There's no question. So I agree. What God was saying, this is what covenant is this called? There's only 5 in the whole Bible. The Mosaic Covenant, because he was making it with Moses. Look, she comes out of nowhere. I don't see her for a year, and boom, she goes to the daily double route. That's because, Rose, you taught her well. That's the bottom line. You did. Good for you. So God is basically declaring to the children of Israel, if they would obey, he would bless them. If they would obey, he would bless them. Like he's going to totally take care of them. But they got to hold to their end of the bargain. A covenant is made with 2 parties. It can't be one-sided. It has to be mutually beneficial. Otherwise, it's not a legitimate covenant. So I wholeheartedly agree with both takes. Yes, a covenant was being cut, and God was giving his law to Israel. True. But with that being said, I'd like to throw something else in the mix. Something that, if you know me, I feel very strongly about this. I'd like to submit to you that a marriage was taking place. God was marrying Israel. Let's look at verses 7 and 8, just to get a little bit more context. It says, Moshe came, summoned the leaders of the people, leaders of the tribes, and presented them with all the words which Adonai had ordered. So he's like a mediator, if you will. He's going up to talk to the Lord, and then he's coming down to tell them what he said. Okay? He tells them everything Adonai said. All the people answered as one, right? All the people, with one voice, in unison. Everything Adonai has said, we will do. Now, if he was making the covenant with just one person, they would have said, I do. Does that sound like a marriage? Yes, you're making a covenant. Moshe reported the words of the people. He went back and he said, they agree. They agreed to the covenant, okay? So a wedding, in a way, was taking place, right? Because what do you do at a wedding? You exchange vows. And they're exchanging vows. God said, I will protect you. I will provide for you. I will prosper you. I will take total care of you. But in turn, you'll obey me. It's not a bad deal, right? By the way, that's still true today. The Mosaic Covenant hasn't disappeared. Churches call it the 10 Commandments. It's the Mosaic Covenant. It just sounds cooler with the 10 Commandments, but it's the Mosaic Covenant. Yeah, it's very Judaic in nature. A wedding needs what? Needs a groom. Who's the groom? Good. Needs a bride. Who's the bride? Israel. Yeah, and just to throw this in there, God hates divorce. Oh, if you're one of those knuckleheads who think he's divorced Israel, show me the verse. So we've got a groom, we've got a bride. Do we need a best man? What did the best man do in antiquity? He protected the bride from being taken. If the bride was to be taken or in any way, he would stand up. So the groom always had his best man and his strongest man. Does God have a best man here? Who? Beautiful. So we got a groom, we got a bride, we got a best man. What else do we need at a wedding, especially a Jewish wedding? We need a ketubah, right? You need a ketubah. A ketubah it's Hebrew for marriage contract. You sign something because that's how serious a covenant is. You're signing something before God. Remember, doesn't the reverend or the priest or whatever his name is, he says, before God and these witnesses. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean much to people today. It still means a lot to God. So you need a ketubah. Was there a ketubah? The covenant. The covenant is a ketubah. That's what they're signing on to. You need a chuppah, a cloud cover, right? And I'll just throw this in there. What about a band? Was there a band? That's not the band. That's the sign. Slow down. You got 3 rights, so you think you know it all. Judges, take her winnings away. The band, right? What was playing? Thunder, lightning. The way you love me is frightening. Girl, you better not. Anyway, maybe that's where you got that saying, strike up the band. I don't know. Anyway, let's continue, because you didn't like that, so let's continue. Because you're lame and you don't like to laugh. And anyway, let's continue. Exodus 19, 14 through 17. It says Moshe went down from the mountain. So he said they do. He brought down the covenant. You do? Okay, we're going to get wed. Moshe went down from the mountain to the people and separated the people for God. They washed their clothing. He said to the people, prepare for the 3rd day. Don't approach a woman. What does don't approach a woman mean? No intercourse. Stop with the relations. Stop talking like you're in a Baptist church. It's intercourse. Everybody had it. That's why we're here, right? On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder, lightning, I told you, and a thick cloud on the mountain. I told you. Then a shofar blast sounded so loudly that everybody trembled. This is serious. God takes marriage seriously. Now, don't feel convinced. Look, some of you, it didn't work out. I'm not here to look. Okay, let's move on. Moshe brought, because you know how that works. Rabbi, you made me feel bad. Leave me alone. Moshe brought the people out of the camp to meet God. They stood near the base of the mountain. So the washing of the clothes and the abstinence from sexual intercourse was designed to teach us the necessity for purity in the presence of God and purity in the relationship. Now, as I said, a wedding needs a groom, a bride, a best man, a ketubah, the marriage contract, a chuppah, which figuratively represents God's divine protection. But doesn't a bride and groom need a place to live? Right? Now, let me just throw this in there for you that might be getting married. 1, do not move in with your in-laws. Absolutely not. Under no condition. Okay? We feed the homeless every weekend. There's a warming center. I'll get you a bed. You're better off. Don't do it. Okay? 2, if you have an apartment or she has an apartment, don't move in there. Get a new place. Start fresh. Okay? If you can't because there's extenuating circumstances, then I understand. But you need a place to commune. So the instructions of the tabernacle, get this, Exodus 25:1 to 31:18. No, go back. Thank you. Not my fault, not yours. Don't worry about it. Exodus 25:1 to 31:18 is the description for the instructions of the tabernacle. And then from 35:4 to 40:38 talks about carrying out those instructions. So basically the second half of the book of Exodus is all about the tabernacle. Now, God does not, this Bible, I know you think this Bible is big. It's not. It's really small. It is. I mean, all of God's word in this little book. So do you think he's going to waste 16 chapters on something that's not significant? No shot. Not only that, but the tabernacle is mentioned like 50 chapters in the Bible. So it's a big deal. The focus of the tabernacle is rooted in the fact that this is the means through which the Lord chose to dwell among his people. Look at Exodus 25:8, verse 8. It says they are to make me, not them, just like the feasts. They're not Jewish feasts. They're not Hebraic feasts. They're not Christians' feasts. They're the Lord's feasts. We forget he's in charge. So it says they are to make me a sanctuary. Can you imagine? This is crazy. If you don't think this is crazy, then you're crazy. Almighty God, the creator and saint of the universe, says to the children of Israel, I want to live among you. I want to put a manifest presence in your midst. And the day that manifest presence is going to give you shade from the hot sun at night, it's going to be a fire to keep you warm. And when it moves, you're going to know to move. What? It's a no-brainer, guys. It's like a no-brainer. You know what? I didn't have these on. I'm like saying, what's going on? Did the screens change? Did that lousy graphic artist mess up the screens? Okay, so he wants to live among them, which is absolutely stunning. Look at the word sanctuary. It's mikdash. In the Hebrew, it means a sacred place. It's not just any place. It's sacred, a holy place. Just like the ground. Remember where the burning bush was? Was the burning bush holy? No. The ground was holy. Why? Because of the Lord's presence. Anywhere the Lord is, it's holy ground. If he shows up anywhere, it doesn't matter. It's holy. If he shows up in your shower, it's holy ground. It don't matter where it is. When he shows, it's holy. Now, look at Exodus 25:8 again. It says, they'll make me a sanctuary so that I may live among them. What is this word? It's shachan in the Hebrew. It means to settle down. You know when like a guy says, I think it's time to settle down. Isn't this amazing? And he wants to reside. He wants to live with his people. This is crazy. People talk about, well, God's up here and I'm down there. No way, man. No, when they think, well, he came in human form. No, he was there. God's always been among his people. That's how beautiful our God is. The presence of the Lord will be in Israel's midst. And then they arranged the camp, and that would be around the tabernacle, telling us that God should always be in the center of our lives. If you looked at first century synagogues, it wasn't this style. This is more of a Greek style, okay? The Greek style is what? You have a band. You have a guy with a microphone, and you have an audience. Now, you know how I feel about the Greek style. You know, like, you should be doing some kind of ministry. I don't care if you're mentoring a kid in the neighborhood, something. For God's sakes, something. But in the first century, I've been to a lot of synagogues from the first century in Israel. They're in the round. And the word is read in the... Now, that's kind of a hard style because you got your back to people, so it doesn't really work modern day so much. But God was trying to tell us something. The synagogue was in the center of town. Everything was worked out at the synagogue. Any differences was worked out in the synagogue. Any political issues were worked out in the synagogue. Because God had to be in the center of every decision. That's what God was trying to say. Moving on to the next verse, Exodus 25:9. It says, you are to make it according to everything I show you. And do you see the details of the sockets? The size of the poles? I mean, it was very detailed. Why did it have to be so detailed? I'm sure somebody said, what's the big deal? Why 12 sockets? Why not 11? What's the big deal? It is a big deal. That's what's happening today. People are saying, well, the Bible said, but it's, it's old. What's the big deal? Listen, when you don't obey God, I'm just telling you, it's a big deal. And when you do obey God, it's a big deal. When God is involved, it's a big deal because God's a big deal. Other things I don't care. Where should we put this in the house? No offense, ladies. There's an open space. It can use a table. If Bernadette asked me that, I don't care. Put the table in the garage. Throw the table out. I don't care. I could care less. Okay, it's not my thing. I'm not interested. But when it comes to God, what did you say? It's very frustrating? Yes, you're right. Thank you for admitting that. I'm very frustrated when you bring crap in the house. Thank you, in front of God and these witnesses. Stop doing it. Just say I don't. Don't say I do. Make it according to everything I show you, the design of the tabernacle, the design of its furnishing. This is how you ought to make it. God insisted that the tabernacle be made according to his exact instructions. For one, you can come up with your own. This is not, look, I'm up here. This is just my take on it, okay? For one, the fear of the Lord is always made manifest to obedience in what he commands. If you want to fear the Lord, which you should, listen, if you want to fear the Lord, which you should, then that fear is made manifest by obeying his commands, period. If you want to be holy, which you should, that holiness is made manifest by obeying God. There is no other way. And secondarily, I think the details of the tabernacle are meant to teach people what it means to have a holy God living among them. Today, it's so casual. It's so cavalier. You know, we wear loungewear, you know, because we're just lounging around the church. You know, we got basketball courts in the sanctuary. Basketball courts. The bottom line is what God was teaching, and I could teach on the tabernacle, no offense, till Yeshua comes back. It's so detailed. There's ways to teach on every little item. That's not what this is about. What this is about is don't add and don't take away. It's so simple. Guys, I know you do for the most part, but stick to the script. It's timeless. It's eternal. The Word of God is eternal. Don't mess with it. Okay? Now, again, we can go on and on about the richness of the tabernacle, but suffice it to say that the tabernacle is seen as a tented place for Israel's divine king to dwell with them according to a divine pattern. If this is true about a physical building, how much more important it is to build up Messiah's congregations today according to God's divine pattern. Last but not least, we went over the groom, the bride, the whole nine, right? What about a wedding ring? Well, you thought I was talking about it. Now I am talking about it. Just a little premature. Now let's take a look at Exodus 31. The people of Israel are to keep the Shabbat. Is the Sabbath important? How important? I mean, I guess when God tells you something, didn't I just tell you that everything he says is a big deal? I don't want to put it in a hierarchy. Well, this is really important. This isn't so important. If he said it, it's important. That's it. No big deals. Don't try to figure it out. Who are you to make a hierarchy of what God deems is important or not? The people of Israel are to keep the Shabbat, to observe Shabbat throughout all their generations as a perpetual covenant. It's a contract that God made with them forever. Okay, it doesn't say till Messiah comes. Make no mistake. It is a sign. Shabbat's a sign between me, God, and the people of Israel forever. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, but on the seventh day he stopped working and rested. Let's look up this word sign. And it's ot in the Hebrew. It's a distinguishing mark, a banner, a proof. Interesting. So the Sabbath is a distinguishing mark. It's one of those things that identifies us as peculiar. It really is. There's other things, like even eating identifies us. I'll give you an example. I was at the Rendezvous. I was preaching in Memphis. I was at the Rendezvous, the oldest barbecue house in the United States of America. I sat there, and you were there. Remember? And I said, excuse me. The waiter was there for 46 years, something like that. I said, excuse me, do you happen to have beans cooked without pork? The owner of the Rendezvous came out a minute later and said, you're Jewish, aren't you? Distinguishing mark. I don't know if you've noticed, but Shabbat's not that popular. It's a distinguishing mark. It really is. Now, it does say, I'll grant you, let's go back to the scripture for a minute. It does say the people of Israel. So a Christian could argue, look, I'm not the people of Israel. This is with the Jewish people, right? They can, I know what you're thinking, but we're grafted in. Slow down. Okay? It does say a perpetual covenant with the sons of Israel, but I'm here to tell you that if you look up the word sons, it just doesn't mean biological sons. It does not mean that at all. If you look it up in the Hebrew, it means members of a nation, even if you're grafted into that nation. If somebody comes from another nation, it doesn't matter where. I mean, it could be Portugal, it could be Italy, it doesn't matter. And they come to America and they get citizenship. They are grafted into America. They are now Americans. Now, they might have a hard time with that because today everybody's about their nationality. Good. I'm about your nationality too. But if you love it so much, go back. What are you here for? Just to get money? What are we, a cash cow? Go back. If you got citizenship, then look, I'm from German descent. 1898, my family came here in Ellis Island. But you don't see me running around saying, you got to eat knockwurst. Do I? No, it's like, this is my heritage, but I'm an American. This is my citizenship. So if you're grafted into Israel, that's your citizenship. I don't know what the big fight is. I mean, it's almost beguiling that you can have, like, most of you are Gentiles, right? So you celebrate Sukkot and your family looks at you like you're nuts. But then they say, hey, come to the fall festival at our church at the end of the month. What am I missing? Do I think a fall festival is bad? Not necessarily. Is it wise? No. No. Well, we got to do something for the kids for Halloween. Why? Why are you baptizing Halloween? Things are supposed to be baptized like a person, and then things are supposed to be burned like Halloween. You don't need to give them an alternative. Why you give them an alternative? Why don't you just give them the truth? So you're making fun of me for celebrating a festival that God implemented and God told me to celebrate, but I'm a weirdo because I won't do a fall festival. Trunk or treat. Get out of here. Get out of here. Come on, you're crazy, crazy. So, if you're grafted in according to Romans 11, and that's very New Testament, and that's the quintessential theological book for the Gentiles. It's written to Romans. These were all Gentiles. Okay? He's explaining it in the first century. You're grafted in. Okay? For instance, July 4th is a big deal, right? American independence. It's a big deal. So as an American citizen, you celebrate it. If you're grafted in, why would you not celebrate it? So if you're grafted into Israel, isn't it the same principle? I mean, I'm not trying to push you. I know most of you get it. And I'm not here to push you. To be honest with you, it will be a great day when I stop pushing, because I'm tired of it. But how can you refute blatant biblical truth? How do you fold your arms and go, I don't care that it says that in the Bible. I don't care that God said this. This is the way we do it. I mean, what's wrong with you? Seriously, I need to know. You're a smart guy. You're intelligent. You're very well educated. Why would you do it your way as opposed to Yahweh? How do you hold on to that stance? How do you look at God and go, I know this is the way you want me to do it, but I don't want to upset anybody. Lord, you know that we'll lose half our congregation, and that means we'll lose our funding. Who's your provider? You're not my provider, guys. I got news for you. Not in a million years. God has always provided for me. When I was flat broke, we had things. Because God always told me, don't let your salary dictate your income. I'm your provider. Adonai Yireh, not the congregation Yireh. So, I don't believe, I really don't. I mean, you can go to some Messianic congregations and they're very Judaic and they're almost oppressively Judaic. And I can tell you this too. A lot of those leaders weren't raised in strict Judaism. Some of them, I don't even know if they're really Jewish. You know? So they have this identity crisis. They want to be Jewish so bad that they go into the phone booth and they come out super Jew. And then they're doing things that don't make any sense. And I'm looking at them and I'm saying, guys, you're an embarrassment. You're a goy doing things that Orthodox do, and they're looking at you and saying, you're sidreit, which is Yiddish for nuts. You're not witnessing to them. You're not provoking them jealousy. I'm a Jew, a former Orthodox Jew. I'm telling you, I lived it. They're looking at you like you're out of your mind. So if you think you're provoking them, you're not. Not to jealousy, you're just provoking them. They're laughing. No offense. So I want you to know, I don't think I'm better than any Christian who doesn't celebrate Shabbat. I don't. I never agreed with the Seventh-day Adventists. They made a religion out of one feast. What happened to the other ones? And then they said Sunday morning is the mark of the beast. I got news for you. It's not the mark of the beast. Just to let that in there. But I don't think I'm better. But I will tell you this. I think I'm better off. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And the crazy thing is, when I walked away from Judaism, because it was like oppressive to me, I didn't get it. Maybe it was my fault. But how can I really get it if I don't even have access to a Ruach HaKodesh? So I walked away. I did it. Why? The same reason why a lot of you are doing it. Because your parents drug you here. And you're saying all the right things to your parents. Oh yeah, I love it there, I love it there. And 18, you're gone. You go to college, you start getting high, you dabble around in a bisexual relationship in your history. And you wonder what happened. Because you never talked to them. You just kept dragging them along. You got to talk to them and see where they're at. Does this make sense to you? And don't, browbeat them if it doesn't. Think about when you were 15 or 16. Did you get it? Not exactly. They're in the same boat. So I don't feel better, but I think I'm in a better position. And I walked away from Shabbat. I walked away from my whole heritage. The crazy thing is, who brings me back to the heritage? Jesus Christ. How did that happen? He had nothing. I was taught he had nothing. And listen, no offense, but the church taught me it too. It wasn't just the rabbis. The rabbis taught me he has nothing to do with us. And the church said, you better believe he has nothing to do with you. He's ours. But you hijacked him. You put a long wig on him. You painted his face white. You cut off his beard. He didn't look Jewish anymore. The church hijacked him. They made him into their image. To me, I remember when we moved to Florida, when God told us just move, and we left our family, and we left everything we hold near and dear. We are New Yorkers, man. We bleed New York City, and we love it. Make no excuse for it. It's one of the greatest cities in the world, if not the greatest city, and we loved it there. And that first night when we stumbled upon Messianic Judaism, because I met that Jewish cantor from the conservative synagogue, Shelley London, God rest his soul. And I'm witnessing to him about Yeshua, and he says, I believe in Yeshua. And I'm like, really? What church do you go to? He goes, I don't go to a church. I said, you don't go to a church. It's either synagogue, and you don't believe in Yeshua, a church, and you do believe in synagogue. He said, no, there's a place called Beth Judah. Beth Judah. Messianic congregation. I said, really? What's going on there? He said, it's like about 75, 80% Jews who believe in Yeshua. I looked at Shelley, I go, I thought I was the only one. I didn't know. I never met another one. And then we walked in there, done. Knees hit the ground. I saw an ark. I heard them singing songs in Hebrew to Yeshua. They walked the Torah around. They said, take me past the outer courts, through the holy place, past the brazen altar. I'm like, what's going on here? We fell in love. And bagels afterwards. They had a great bagel shop in Ormond, like a legit New York bagel shop. And do you remember that next Friday we did Shabbat, just you and me, and I was wailing. I was like, how did Yeshua bring me back to Shabbat? Unbelievable. Guys, the Sabbath was to be a sign of our commitment to the marriage covenant. We can go on and on. You could study it on your own, but it was a sign. That's the ring. That's the ring. You know how men today wear a ring? It's a sign. But I got news for you. It's all too easy for people to wear a wedding ring these days and not keep themselves pure and undefiled and keep the marriage bed holy. The ring's not going to save you, man. In fact, today, a lot of women could care less if you're wearing a ring. It's more about commitment, not about a ring. It's a mindset. When the Lord exchanged vows with us, he was saying, I do forever. He was saying, I'll never leave you, nor forsake you. Why don't we realize that he deserves the same level of commitment from us? Just as we need to realize the severity of what we are signing on to when we marry another, we need to all the more realize the severity of what we are signing on to when we say, I do to Yeshua. Look at 1 Peter 2:9. It says, but you, now this is New Testament, so he's talking about those grafted in. It wasn't an afterthought. Listen to me. It's not like God had this thing was going to be just a Jewish community. And then he thought, you know what? Let's throw the Gentiles a bone. No, because holy nation is Goy Kadosh, and Goy in the Bible is always used when it talks about Gentiles. So God's plan was to bring you all in. So when he says you are a chosen people, he's not talking to Israel here. He's reiterating Exodus 19, but now he's talking to you. See, you guys are wonderful because you do, for the most part. Some of you are new, some of you might be just passing through. But most of you really get it. And you appreciate that God grafted you into this tree. There's only two trees you could be part of. One's the olive tree, and the other is the Christmas tree. And the olive tree, its root is in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and it has natural branches and wild branches. If you look at a Christmas tree, it's pretty. It looks evergreen. It's got lights. It's got a star. But if you look down at the bottom, it's cut off from its root and it's dying. You are a chosen people. The king's Kohanim. The king's priests. Not the priests of the temple. Not Aaronic priests, Levitical priests. Yeshua's priests. You see the weight of this? A holy nation. A people for God to possess. Why? In order so you could declare his praises. To speak about the one who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Peter is talking about the privileges of a believer, and he's quoting Exodus 19:5-6. That's why you still see that word peculiar. And this is where the Lord is describing what his wife should look like. You know, people say, do you have a type? Well, I like tall, I like blonde. God's type is internal, not external. You here, is referring to all believers, Jew and Gentile alike. No hierarchy, equal footing. A chosen people means God found us. And not the other way around. It's God's grace as opposed to human choice that explains our salvation. Now let's look at this word chosen for a moment, where we get the word election, picked out. Picked out. They would be a people selected by God. You were selected by God. Whether you understand it or not, nobody does. Instead of being an earthly race with common ancestry, and distinct physical characteristics. You know, when people used to say to me, you don't look Jewish, I had so many anti-Semitic remarks made to me. So many, not to me, but about the Jews. And I'd be like, I'm Jewish. And they'd be like, oh, you don't look Jewish. And I felt like saying, how does a Jew look? You look more Italian. You look more Spanish. I'm like, and you look more like an idiot. Now in Israel, you can't say that. They used to think Jews looked, kind of short, glasses, a little chubby. I'm like, how did you determine a Jew looks like? Do you realize how much of a revelation you're giving me that you're a moron? They're black Jews. They're from Ethiopia. They're Chinese Jews from Kaifeng. There's Indian Jews, the tribe of Manasseh. Like, where are you living? Under a rock? You don't look Jewish. All right. But it has nothing to do with an earthly race, okay? They would be a heavenly people, with divine parentage and spiritual resemblances. That's why there should never be a denomination. There should be one church, one body, one faith. That's it, one. Guys, there's only one head. Yeshua is the head. There's only one head, okay? And in reality, there are two federal heads, either Yeshua or Adam. But if you're born again, then there's one head. How can you ask that head to go on so many different bodies? Is he the head of the Baptist church, the head of the Methodist church, the head of the Pentecostals, the head of the black church, the head of the Chinese church? I've preached at all black churches, all Asian churches, all Spanish churches. They're believers. When you get out of your skin, you're out of your mind. And you're fighting with other morons on Facebook about race, get off Facebook. You think you're really going to convince them? You and your little pea brain's going to make your 3 cents and go, well, you're right. I give up my idiocy. Your idiocy is talking to them. Who's the idiot? Get out of Facebook and put your face in God's book. Now, I understand there's value to it. Like when you're communicating with people in other countries who are your family. But besides that, who died and left you a spokesperson? Why don't you just be a spokesperson by how you live your life as opposed to what you say with your mouth? They'll know. Let your works shine, your good works, and they'll know, and they'll glorify your Father in heaven. People are talking too much today. There's so many voices. I don't listen to none of them. I don't watch news, I don't have TV, and I'm not on social media. There's only one voice I want to hear. I know what you're thinking. It's not Bernadette's. No, but I do love hearing her voice. It's a nice voice. It's a pretty voice. It really is. I love her so much, it's ridiculous. In other words, all believers would be blood type Y or J, depending on your persuasion. You follow? We're one, guys. Stop looking at the differences. It's asinine how you baptize. Are you crazy? We have one God. There is one Messiah. There is one faith. There is one way to be saved. There is one Bible. And there is one body. Period, period, period. Don't you see what we have here? I don't know if you've noticed. I didn't grow up in Macon, but this is not Macon. Macon is denomination city. It's one of the most spiritually, no offense, I love being here. I love that God brought us here, and God has blessed the Hershberg socks off. But wake up, Miss Southern Pride. This is the most spiritual, divided city almost in the nation. And it's not making fun of you. It's stating a fact about the spiritual condition and the climate of this area. And I've worked 18 years to try to break it down, and I've made no headway. Because every time I brought before pastors or before the mayor, we need to vicariously repent, like David did on behalf of Saul to the Gibeonites, they were like, you're out of your mind. I got to get back to the church, have a meeting. Okay, good for you. We're kings Kohanim. Look at this word. Obviously, 2 words. It's in Greek, but the word that is the same in the Hebrew is mamlacha Kohanim. Same thing in Exodus 19. Now, it says here the royal office of a priest. Now, is there a difference between a royal priest and a holy priest? Say yes. Yes, there is. And that's what I want to bring out to you, because you might think, who cares? A priest is a priest. No, there is a difference between a holy priest. There are sections in Peter where he's saying you're to be a holy priest. Here he's saying a royal priest, and there's a reason, okay? And the reason is as follows. Holy priests go into the sanctuary of heaven by faith to worship. That's what you're doing here. You're a holy priest. You're coming into the sanctuary to worship. But that's not where it stays. If all you're doing is going into the synagogue as a holy priest, going into your Bible study as a holy priest, going into your Chad group as a holy priest, man, you're missing it. He's saying that we're royalty. Royal priests go out in the world to witness. They witness. This is letting us know that as royal priests, we need to go into the world and tell everyone about this great King of ours and his plan of salvation. People aren't getting saved because people stopped evangelizing. They stopped. The church stopped. You got a couple people that do it here and there, but overall, it's not happening today. I don't know if people are tired. I don't know if they gave up. I don't know what the reason is, and I'm no psychologist and I could care less. I just know we're supposed to do it. And it's an honor to do it. If you don't, who will? We're a holy nation. Hagios ethnos. You got it? Hagios ethnos. Same word, goy kadosh, in Exodus 19. It's a holy nation or a tribe. That tribe isn't one of the 12. It's the body of Messiah. God calls us to be different. He wants us to be different, peculiar, but not externally different. And by the way, just to throw this in there, I got nothing. Look, I could care less if you're tatted, if you got 42 piercings, who cares? But let me just say, while you're trying to be different, you're like everybody else. If you want to be different, be you, and stop trying to be somebody else. God wants us to have a heart that's completely his. That's what it means to be part of this holy nation. We're to love God with all our hearts, all our minds, all our souls, all our strengths. We vow to have no other gods before him, right? That's what we vowed. When I vowed to Bernadette, I said, I'm going to have no other woman before you. You're my only one, sweet pea. Well, that's what you vowed to God. And we do have others. Some of our hobbies are gods. Our monies is gods. We do. We don't want to admit it because they don't look like totem poles, but they're totem poles nevertheless. We're to vow to have no idols. God's intention was for Israel and those grafted into Israel to be a nation set apart. And look what comes next. A people for God to possess his own property. GP, are you with me? You're God's property. He owns you. You don't belong to yourself. Deny yourself when Yeshua said it's not self-denial. It's not giving up chocolate. He owns you. Yeah, he's the master. You're the slave, but I'm telling you, you'll never find a master like him. The people you work for can't compete with him. He's a blesser. The first thing he did in Genesis when he made man was bless. The last thing Yeshua did before he split was bless. The Bible ends on a note of blessing. He's a blesser. He wants the absolute best for you. We are called to be a people of purpose. People always saying, what's my purpose? They die. What did they do? They worked. They saved some money. They did a little fishing, tinkered around. That's the legacy. You're a believer, man. Your purpose is so much greater. It's amazing. That purpose is none other than to glorify God's holy name. The children of Israel belong to God in a unique way. They would be his peculiar treasure. To declare his praises. Declare his praise. Proclaim virtue and moral excellence. By a divine miracle. I don't understand it. But we were transformed from this gloomy, I was in a gloomy kingdom of darkness. I was a mess. I don't know if I was any more of a mess than anybody else, but man, I was so messed up. And then somehow by some miracle on a honeymoon, looking to just go to this place and party. We were in a lot partying. Yes, we were drinking and messing around and water skiing and scuba diving. I had money. We were just partying. I wanted to show off my little swimsuit model. And then God nails me. And instantaneously, I'm delivered from this gloomy kingdom of darkness into God's glorious kingdom of light. How do you explain that? And the light, guys, I'm here to tell you, and I'm not the only one. I know every one of you can testify to this truth, but the light is even more brilliant than the darkness was oppressive. We've been forgiven. And we're never going to stop celebrating it. With that being said, why did the writers of the KJV use the word peculiar? The KJV was compiled in 1611. When it was compiled, the word peculiar was often used to refer to something belonging to someone, as in someone's property. So that word in the early 17th century meant if you said that's peculiar, that means that's my special treasure. Can you imagine? I see kids. I don't have any keepsakes. I'm sorry. I don't have the only picture I have on my phone, I have one picture. Can you imagine? Is there anybody in the universe with one picture on their phone? All the vacations, 50 states, 40 countries, I don't have a picture. I don't have a special ring or a bracelet that means something to me. Everything that means anything to me is right in here. It just is. But I know people have these boxes at home, right? Some people have safes. Some people have safety deposit boxes, and they keep their special stuff. I mean, when God calls you peculiar, it's very powerful. I know some of you have been knocked around. Obviously, insecurity is an all-time high. You know what I mean? This bullying thing that's going on, just get yourself a sock with a roll of quarters and hit him in the head. That's what we did. No, I'm sorry. That's probably not something that you should hear, but I mean, that's what we did. And if I didn't do it, my father did it to me. He went to his drawer, took a sock. I go, I'll take care of it. We worked it out that way. This is kind of crazy that people are feeling so bad because of what somebody else said. I raised my 2 boys to say there is no such thing as an unattractive lady. It doesn't exist. Because if you tell me that, then you're telling me God doesn't know what he's doing, and don't ever tell me that, son. So if you're attracted to somebody, that's your personal viewpoint. But don't tell me that because you're not attracted to X ain't happening. You ain't happening with that attitude. And I made sure that they were like that. And they know that. And I told my girls, if you're gifted with some beauty from your mom because you were blessed to have the genetics, who are you to say that you're better looking than anybody else? It's inappropriate. And secondarily, stop looking at the exterior and start looking at the heart. There are beautiful hearts that you're missing. And if you keep looking at the exterior of your wife's beauty, guess what? Somebody's going to come along that's prettier than her. And your marriage is going to be every day of the week. But this keepsake stuff, people have these little things. They have these mementos. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just not me. You know what I mean? It's just not me. If there's a fire in the house, I run in and I get the Bible. Then I go out with the Bible and I go, crap, burning the kids. And then I go back. And then if the fire's really blazing, I figure, okay, I got 4 kids, which 2 are the most important to me? Because, there's a hierarchy, there's fire. But anyway, so the way it worked was back in the day, okay, maybe 1st century and before, when warring kings, had battles, the defeated king would be humiliated. And his best stuff would be brought out in front of the victorious king. The victorious king would kind of put his foot on the king's neck like, I'm taking something. And he would take one thing, the best of the best, and he would call it his segulo. And he'd put it in his treasury. Can you imagine with everything in the world and all the people in the world, God went back and forth and said, you're my most precious possession. I'm going to put you in my treasury forever, and nobody's ever going to take you from me. Is that unbelievable? Now, the most common use of the word peculiar today is someone strange, odd, or uncommon. Yes? Has anybody ever been called that? Yet, alternative meanings that aren't as popular are used to describe something or someone that belongs exclusively to some person. Now, although the world looks at us at times as odd, and some of you do a good job to warrant that, although the world looks at us as odd and strange, or weird even, I think it's just beautiful to be peculiar as it relates to being God's special treasure. I own it. I absolutely love it. For us who are New Covenant believers, we are special for sure. How so? Show up next week, and I'll tell you. This was an intro to a special treasure. Next week, you're going to be blown away. Let's stand together. When you're with somebody like 37 years, you can almost read their mind. You can finish their sentences. Bernadette and I have spent so much time together, like every day together. And her mind was saying, oh God, let this not continue. Please, by a miracle of God's grace, do it next week. So that's why I'm doing it next week. No, I plan to do it. God had a plan. And if you can't come next week, it's good to see you all back too. I don't know why you decided to come back. I don't know if you felt that call from God. I don't know. Johnny, it's good to see you on your feet. Rusty, I know you're watching. I got to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be flat out honest with you. Rusty was about this close to death, and I'm telling you something, as God is my witness. I told it to Bernadette, if my buddy dies, it'll be the last time I do a funeral, because that would have been my last one. I was out of here. I kid you not. And I told God, if you receive him, I'm out. I'm done, because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. So now that Johnny's breathing and Rusty's breathing, I could breathe. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace in the name of the Prince of all peace, Yeshua. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yo'er Adonai panav elecha v'hunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Shabbat shalom, guys. I love you.